Hey, before we get started, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Launchpad Pod, on our website, launchpadpod.com. Watch us on YouTube. Today, we got a little bit of a different episode, guys. We actually planned something. It's going to be great. Today, we're talking about big teams in history, in movies, the best teams. I can't wait because we don't normally talk about sports. I'm not much of a sports guy, so I'm really excited to talk about these teams. We're talking about Toon Squad. We're talking about the Hickory High Huskers. It's going to be great. So tune in on the Launchpad Podcast.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, welcome to the Launchpad Podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Matt.
Let's go. Dun, 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 dun. I never thought we would do a sports episode, Matt. And even though I'm not a big sports guy, I'm excited. We're talking about sports ball. But the look on your face, that's not what you thought this episode was going to be about, is it?
So it's funny because I literally realized as I wrote my list up today, I was like, you and I texted each other a day or two ago and was like, hey, let's record soon. You know what? Let's do an episode about the best teams. And I realized today as I thought to myself, what do I mean when I say best teams? I was like, well, not only do I not know, but I certainly didn't share my thoughts with you. So I was like, I should text him and write. And I was like, no, just see what he does for this. And we'll see. So you did all sports stuff, which sounds good.
So I watched Varsity Blues and I watched Blue Mountain State. Go West Canaan Coyotes is all I can say.
I did Hoosiers. I did the Mighty Ducks.
Yes. The
That's
Dillon
all
High
sports
Panthers.
movies I know.
Friday Night Lights. Oh no, Sandlot.
I did 2 movies about Prefontaine, but I know he wasn't on a team. But 2 movies of the same guy, I think, counts as a team
Okay.
situation.
How about the team full of ghosts? Ooh, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Didn't have to be dirty. It didn't have to be.
I watched the porn version called "If There's Grass on the Field of Dreams." That's not a perfect joke, but that's pretty good for completely off the cuff with no.
Yeah, man, we didn't workshop this. So, what teams did you want to talk about? Who are your teams?
So this is my idea that I pitched to Rumi, or I guess half-ass pitched. But my pitch was, when you watch a movie, this is how it was in my head that I didn't explain to you at all. So let's see if we're on the same page. My whole thought was, when you watch a movie and the movie tells you, hey, these guys, girls, whatever, this group has been together for a while. They've been through some shit together. They are a tight, packed team. They're there for each other. They know each other, and you need to believe that.
That's interesting.
Is that what you did?
Well, yes, to an extent, but looking into this, most movies aren't about the tight packed, been there, done that team. It's about putting the team together for the first time, because
Correct. That's a whole different thing.
People love an origin story. And that's something that's always like, okay, like even the Avengers movie is about how the Avengers came together,
Correct.
right?
Right. And that's when Amanda said, what are you recording tonight? And I said, we're doing teams. She said, like the Avengers. I said, no. And then I started listing the ones that I have on my list that, to me, like when I watch those movies, I'll tell you what, let me give you the one that started it all for me. That's the one that gave me this idea the last time I watched this movie about a year ago.
Okay.
It's a sequel.
I mean, I think they all have to be, because it's like, I can't do Avengers 1, but I can do Avengers 2.
No. A couple of mine are first ones.
Okay, all right.
It's a sequel. It's a sci-fi action sequel.
Mm-hmm. The Colonel Marine, Space Marines?
Exactly. So
yeah.
You watch Aliens and you have these ass-kicking Marines. You meet them as they come out of hypersleep. And I marvel every time I watch this movie. I feel like these guys and girls have been through the shit together. They love each other. They're there for each other. It's their job to fight together, but they bust each other's balls. They're a family. They're knocking, clearly you have Apone is in charge, right? And you have the new sergeant is put into this team that they don't like him. And he's, more of an executive than an actual battle sergeant. You have Bill Paxton is like the kid brother of the team who he does his job. He hacks those fucking machines and he is a fighter, but also he's the one that's going to fuck around and he's the one that's going to be, getting in trouble and saying stupid shit.
As somebody who's part of the team, not outside the team, like their new sergeant, he's the one that they're busting the balls the most. They're the one who they're doing the mumbly peg to and stuff like that.
Sure, right. And then you have Drake and Vasquez, the two with the smart guns. They're what my dad calls the rock and roll machine guns.
Yeah.
Those two are like a subgroup in that, and that those two take their heavy artillery seriously. The fact that she gives him one of her extra ammo containers once they get the ammo stripped when they're underneath the power core, that those two are like brothers in blood, right? They're a band of brothers, those two specifically. Well, every time I watch that show in any scene, it just to me feels like this is an army unit. They are here to kick ass and chew bubble gum. And I just get the feeling and part of me might be biased because I after the 100th time seeing the movie, heard that they filmed all of those sequences in almost essentially in reverse chronological order, so that by the time they were shooting the wake up out of cryo sleep scene, they had been through the whole movie together. So at that point, they all knew each other, and I think that's cool. And I think that makes sense. And watching that movie, I feel that. I feel that these guys have been with each other on multiple planets, on multiple engagements, and are an actual, cohesive unit that fights together. I completely believe that every time I see that movie.
That's a great point, because I do love their interaction, and you definitely believe that they fought together. They know each other. They have inside jokes. They have inside jokes that they're letting the audience in on, which is kind of cool. And your note about the Vasquez and the heavy machine guns, it's like, they're also like, technically, if you break down a team into its facets, in different terms, whether it's role-playing games, whether it's video games, you have the heavy, which is somebody who's just there to lay down a lot of firepower or soak up a lot of firepower or just be a big bruiser. And like, that's their role in the team, and they stick together. It's like you immediately understand who they are, what their roles are in the team. You got your tactical guy, you have your computer guy, you got the pilot, and you have the heavy. And that's like, teams are important when you have those classifications. And you're right. I think Aliens is one of the best ones to immediately get you immersed in their world. And you're like, I know who these people are. And it's like, I love their little jokes that they have. They're like, this is just another bug hunt, man. And you're like, what does that even mean? We've talked about this.
I forget the alien species, but when they're eating dinner and they're like, yeah, that's because you had a male. And he's like, doesn't matter when it's not Carillion, but doesn't matter when it's Nubian. And they're like, you get I believe it 100% every time. And you could say that that's in the writing. You can say that that's in the acting and in the camaraderie of the cast as talent, as actors. But I just, every time I watch it, I'm enthralled with that dynamic, and I totally believe it. And Apone, Hudson,
chewing on
come
the
here,
cigar.
come here. Like Hudson's fucking around in the meeting, and then Apone is like, come here.
Here's a question for you: Is what they have going in that movie cliche, or did it become cliche because of what they did? Now, obviously, we had already had things like Full Metal Jacket. There had been other movies that have shown the military and these character tropes, but like, do you think a lot of this, I know that because of Aliens, anytime you have sci-fi space marines, it's this. I mean, you don't get Starship Troopers without having this movie, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's one of those that broke them. It's almost literally like the design of the alien itself. There's so many aspects of that design that make it into Aliens of all other things, right? Comic books, movies, cartoons. And even though it doesn't, like some stuff like the double jaws or the elongated head obviously are the alien, but there's so many nuances of that design that make it into other alien designs. And it's just because it has to pay homage or steal from that. And I think the same thing is true with the Space Marine aspect. Like it's just one of those. I don't even know if it was the first one. If you wanted to dig, if you could find a earlier appearance, but it is the best appearance of Space Marines, right? It's the best appearance of a kick-ass, no nonsense, except for Hudson, group that's there to kick ass in space. And the Space Marines, some aliens, that's it right there.
Yeah. That's a good one, man. I'm gonna take it out of space. I'm gonna take it back to
Morty. Literally everything is in space.
Well, I'm gonna take it back to 1844. How about that?
Damn. Okay.
So we're going back to 1844, and this is a French historical adventure novel written by French author Alexander Dumas. Sorry, I couldn't help it. It was just there for the taking. Classic mispronunciation of the great French writer Alexander Dumas. It's a swashbuckler, Three Musketeers, man. So here's an interesting thing. Three Musketeers is a book about four dudes.
Yeah. Little known fact. Did you know?
And it's this guy, D'Artagnan, and he's like, dude, I want to join the Musketeers. I want to join the Three Musketeers. Like, bro, it's in the name. You can't join us. It's just not going to work out.
We don't have a vacancy, dude.
Yeah, this is a trio. But he ends up proving himself and joining the team. Now, because I didn't know we were doing like established teams, so I'm pivoting a little bit, but this still works for me because the Three Musketeers, in every iteration, you usually have this guy on the outside trying to become part of the team on the inside. And the team on the inside is a clockwork team of crack swashbucklers who are all just super badass. And he keeps trying to insert himself into their party, and they keep like fucking busting his nuts and kicking him out of the party. And he finally proves himself, and they let him be a part of their adventure squad after like almost dying, risking his life, and like, saving the French king or whatever they have to do. There's been a million movies of this. Like, you had one with like Leonardo DiCaprio in it. There's like tons and tons and tons of Three Musketeer movies. I think it's one of the, like, next to Robin Hood, one of the most, a book that's been made in the movie the most. It has a million adaptations, like
most iterations.
Yeah, there's just tons of them, and I don't know why. Because is it that good? Is it really?
That's what's going to be my next question for you. Was, have you read the original or seen any of the movies?
I've seen at least 3 of the movies. Obviously, 1993, Charlie Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, Oliver Platt, and Chris O'Donnell. That one's a lot of fun. Man in the Iron Mask, which is basically another version of this. I saw that.
Right.
The one, like, there's a 1948 one that's really famous. Lana Turner's in it, and Gene Kelly. 1948. So it's that one's a lot of fun, swashbuckling and stuff. But as a team goes, you have these guys, these 3 people who are so efficient. They're so good at their job. And there's just like a lot of fun swashbuckling. And swashbuckling is a genre that we don't get enough anymore. Like, honestly, I don't know if it's because people don't care about the genre, if people aren't interested in the time period. We got a little bit of that in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and we got a little bit of that in the prequels. Star Wars, I think that's when they brought lightsaber dueling to swashbuckling level.
In the prequels, you mean?
Yeah, in the prequels. They elevated the fights to a swashbuckling level in my mind, where it's like tons of sword play.
That makes sense.
And as a genre, I think we're missing out on that a little bit. Like, and I know they tried to do it with like Robin Hood. Obviously, the Errol Flynn era of Robin Hood, you had a lot of swashbuckling action, Captain Blood. But pirate movies, Musketeer movies, and Robin Hood is like, that's the era for that to happen. And it's just fun. It's a fun genre to have, and good action swordplay. Why not?
So here's my 2 questions for you. Is 1, take swashbuckling, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, if you're able to answer this is kind of a tangent, but which I know we never do here, but what do you think makes it a swashbuckling movie or a swashbuckling feature or scene rather than action or fight or lightsaber? Like, what makes it swashbuckling specifically?
It is a focus on specifically a type of swordplay. It's not. So like in the original Star Wars, their version of swordplay was very clash and defend. It's medieval broadsword fighting. Swashbuckling is fencing. It's pure fencing. It's quick, fast movements, quick attack and defense. And you're a lot of movement. You're traversing an area. You know, the famous is going up the stairs, fighting down the stairs, swinging from a chandelier. Princess Bride had tons of swashbuckling in it. And I think, just like a martial arts movie, like what makes it a kung fu movie different than just a movie where people are very physical and there's lots of fight scenes? Well, because it's got the kung fu in it. Swashbuckling, I think, has to have a level of fencing involved and fancy swordplay, like a choreography with a specific type of sword. A swashbuckling movie isn't going to have a giant broadsword. You're not going to be doing two-handed smashing through with axes. But if you have, some quick, fast action, it's about speed. I think there's something about the speed and the movement that makes swashbuckling exciting, is traversing an area with lots of fast clashing of swords. And it's like, that's fun and exciting. And especially when you have a good choreographer, like, man, what an exciting scene.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you think the tone of the fight, if not the movie, is important to whether or not it could be classified as a swashbuckling?
See, that's where it can get interesting. This is where I think there's room to play. Because, like, look, I don't really care or see a need for a lot of like 18th century French films to be coming out anytime. Like saying like, man, I would love to see a good swashbuckling film be made today with what we have going on. And people are like, oh, but like just last year they made another Robin Hood movie and nobody went and saw it. Yeah, because nobody wants to see Robin Hood anymore. Like, stop making Robin Hood movies. We've done it a million times.
We already saw it.
We already saw it. I don't think we necessarily need it seems like they keep remaking Musketeer movies. But put a swashbuckler in space. Like, it doesn't. I don't think you need a specific era. I don't think it has to be 18th century France to be cool. Like, I wouldn't mind swashbuckling in a different location. Let's see what happens.
Contrary to popular belief, 18th century France is not the only cool we can show in cinema.
But I mean, like all the pirate movies, right? Those are fun. That was good. But again,
so you've used the word fun numerous times. Now, I agree with you. For a sword fight or sword play to be swashbuckling, it needs to be fast and it needs to be energetic. And I like your analogy of broadswords. I would have said samurai, but samurais are essentially broadsword fighting, but in a different country, in a different era, right? The original Star Wars is very much that clash, like you said. It's more slower and calculated strike and defend and back and forth, exactly what you said. But I feel like I swashbuckling is not a genre that I know well, but I feel like at least the ones I'm familiar with have a certain level of haha in it. Like, this is fun. Like, yes, we're trying to stab each other with swords, but like, this is a good time. Or you're the bad guy, I'm the good guy. It doesn't really matter. We're having a good time here. I'm trying to think if I can think of any serious swashbuckling that I can think of where, like, it's not even just that there are or are not stakes. It's, are the characters having fun? Like Robin Hood, Errol Flynn is a very good example because I feel like he's ha 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 ha.
No, you're right. There's so much ha 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 going on. Like,
yeah, and I feel like that's very important to swashbuckling, right?
And pithy retorts, like when they're doing all the fight scenes in Princess Bride, when he's like, "Oh, I'm not using my left hand," and you're like, "Ha ha!" Like, there's so much
that's a exaggeration, right?
Yeah,
that the whole play, that's a satire of that. But even if you pull it back into real terms, there still is that pithy ha.
So what you're saying is we need a gritty reboot in space.
Yeah, I'd watch the shit out of that, though.
Where some guy's just miserable and mean and swashbuckling the shit out of some stuff.
Like the late 80s, early 90s comic book mood, attitude, where everything was in the rain and stormy and sad, but swashbuckling. Would that be swashbuckling?
I think all you need is a quick, fast sword and a long, prolonged choreographed fight scene. Why not?
See, I'm not a fan of swashbucklers, so for sure. Are you a fan?
I'm not a fan. Like, I'm
You'd
not
be a
going
good swashbuckler.
Look at my mustache. Yeah, man.
I know for sure. Yeah. And you're definitely the most haha person that I know.
I would definitely be the haha type. And I would love to swing from a chandelier. Come on.
Can you imagine if me, because we'd be on the same team. Can you imagine, like, we're the two Musketeers? We're the Rocketeers. Can you imagine if we were swashbuckling in a castle with a bunch of bad guys, because it's 18th century France, right? And you swung from a chandelier, The second you got down, I would fight my way over to you just to do a mid sword fight high five. We'd have to do that, right?
Absolutely. No, I would swing from the chandelier just to give you the high five. And you're like, did you need to swing from that chandelier? I was like, no, dude, I just saw the perfect way to swing down and give you a high five, like while you were fighting a dude. And you were like, haha. You're right. There is quite a levity to this, because there's so much bravado involved. You're excited when you can challenge your sword fighting skills. But yeah, I would love to see somebody who's just having no fun fighting with a sword for a long period of time. Just like, ugh.
Like a John Wick swashbuckling.
That's what I'm talking about. Oh, you just got, just huge. That just, rock hard immediately. See, that's what I'm talking about. Let's get a John Wick of swashbuckling. It doesn't have to be pirates. It doesn't have to be, look, I don't think it's like I'm a connoisseur of it, but I'm a fan. I don't think I've ever not liked a good swashbuckling movie. When you're watching, you're like, this is awesome. Who choreographed this? This is fucking great. Like, again, I'm like, the next time they make another Three Musketeers, I'm like, boo, but I'm on a plane and I'm watching and I'm like, this is great. Look at all this.
Did you ever see the Latin Three Musketeers?
What's the joke?
Three Amigos?
Oh, yeah. They're a good team too, but that's an origin story, not really a.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, going back to teams then. So we're Three Musketeers is your first poll for that.
Sure.
Did you take this assignment that I just said teams, so that's all I told you? Did you take this in a different place? Did you think more origin story teams?
I was just picking like discussions about teams, and Three Musketeers was on there because I was like, that's an interesting thing to look into.
Right.
But like,
don't change your polls based on the directions that I didn't give you.
But I do have a few origin stories, but that's not necessarily that's more the movie's fault, not the team's fault.
Okay, fair. Well, I'll give you another one that I don't know needs as much bravado as the Space Marines, but Dutch and his commandos hunting down the terrorists and then the Predator. Like, how many times have we seen that movie, man? 100? Like, I mean, realistically, I've probably seen it 50 times at least. Don't you think that's a reasonable? I'm 40 years old.
I feel like I watch it every other year, at least.
So that's like 20 times right there.
Yeah.
Just that. And I feel like I've watched it more than once some of those times. So even if you just say 20, but anyway, I've seen that movie so many times. Every single time I buy that these guys would follow Dutch Schaefer, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, into hell, and that they would have each other's backs, that Hawkins would be telling P-word jokes, Billy would be stone-faced, Jesse Ventura would be I think, and this is something I want to get into later, but I feel like Jesse Ventura is the heavy of that group who wants to be the leader, but knows he's not the leader. Mac is his ride or die. Mac and Jesse Ventura, Blaine, they are the Vasquez and Drake of that group, where Absolutely. They are bros for life, right?
Yeah. Well,
and I just, every time you watch that, I'd say they've cut through those jungles together for years,
Predator 1, Predator 2, both set up the teams perfectly, because in the first one, I totally believe that these Marines are a cohesive team of commandos. Mm-hmm. The second one, I believe that that's a team of LAPD who have been through some shit, man.
Right. Been on the streets together for a while, and he's got his unit. Harrigan picked a hell of a day to quit smoking.
This is another I will always come back to bitch about, the Predator. But I didn't buy that team at all. They were like, we're the crazy guys. And it's like, I don't believe that you guys.
That was more like The Losers. Remember that show, The Losers? And there was another movie that came out at the same time that was, I forget what it's called, but it's the same thing.
Yeah, they were definitely losers. It was stupid. Anyway, but I love this pick because, again, anytime you have a group that has their own sort of mode of operation, their own inside jokes, and their own language, they know how to come in, and when Arnold Schwarzenegger does his hand signs, they all know what that means. You don't have to tell us. You don't have to explain where they learned it. You don't have to show it. When he does hand signs, they know that they're going to flank this way and flank that way and fuck up these insurgents or whatever. What are they doing when they start and they take over their little village?
It's a rescue mission. They're looking for a guy whose chopper went down behind enemy lines of these jungle gorillas. They're looking for the gorillas, and the gorillas have hostages.
But like, I've seen that movie 20 times, and still the plot is they fight a predator. But like, there's a whole different plot before the predator shows up.
Yeah, they didn't know that's what they were going to be doing.
Yeah, and always, every time I watch that movie, when they're like, they go in and fight the gorillas in the little encampment, I'm like, I don't remember this happening. And then they get the woman who knows what's happening, and I'm like,
you don't even need that. You don't even need the exposition for that scene. You just need that scene to be like, these guys are fucking awesome at their job.
That's the point of that
great
scene.
Action sequence, right? It's a great set piece, and it sets up the movie for like, this is not a thinker. This is not an acting picture. This is not going to be a drama. This is what it's going to be. Schwarzenegger's going to be throwing a fucking machete through a guy and going, stick around.
Yeah. Not to steal I'm going to piggyback this. First, I want to tell a quick story where my dad watched Prey this week, not knowing that it was a Predator sequel, and not really like putting two and two together. And I was like, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. He's like, I don't know if I've ever seen it. And I was like, he's like, Prey just looked good. He really liked Prey. He's like, it was a really good alien movie. It was a good creature feature, really cool like effects. He thought it was like a very clever story. And I was like, there's like a whole series of these. He's like, I'll have to watch them. I was like, how funny is that for somebody? He's like, and Prey is because he only hunts the prey and not predators. And I was like, also because it's a play on the word The Predator, which is the movie that it came from. He was like, oh, well, that makes sense.
Oh. Has he seen the Predators? He just didn't know it was a predator, or has he not seen those?
I don't know if he's seen any of the Predator movies. I'm going to have to make him watch them now. He had to have seen the first one. He's had to have known. I mean, like, Kevin and I have like 30 Predators a piece on our wall. The thing I wanted to piggyback off of is anytime you talk about like military teams that like show up and kick ass, how about in The Rock? You have Ed Harris's team, and he shows up and they just take over the Rock, the Alcatraz. And he's got a team like Tony Todd's on there, and John C. McGinley, and David Morse. And like, you have like all these like big stars who are like on Ed Harris's team, and they take the Rock, and then they have a mission to fight for our brothers who died, and you didn't do anything for them. You left us out there to die. And they take over Alcatraz, and only the lone bomb diffuser guy played by Wiener Nick Cage has to break in, but he needs his Hannibal Lecter, so he has to go break out Sean Connery in prison. Ludicrous movie, but I love The Rock so much. Like, might be one of my favorite, up there with Face Off for me, is like 1996 1990s action films.
I think that's fair. I like The Rock is not one of my tops in that genre, but I understand it's a foundational of the genre that you just described. I know why it's good. I know why it's important. It's just, I think I just haven't seen it as much as I've seen some of the others. So it doesn't have the significance for me personally.
Also, it was like first or second rated R film I ever saw. I think the first rated R film I ever saw was Air Force One. And then I saw The Rock in theater. Yeah. In theater, dude.
We've been friends for like 20 years, but still every 700 times you say theater, I giggle. And I'm like, this is my adorable little roomie right there.
I was at the theater. And dearest roomie, we were at the theater watching The Rock starring Sean Connery and a young Nicolas Cage. It blew my mind. Like, it blew my mind. I'd never seen something so badass in my life. Like, me and my friends would like play The Rock later. Like, we got to sneak in. We
played Under Siege.
Siege.
We played Under Siege, specifically on a couch with a full-bodied punching bag on the floor next to it. And we pretended that the couch was the battle, like the aircraft carrier that most of the action takes place on. And then that the other thing was the submarine that pulls up alongside of it, and he ends up blowing a hole in.
I forgot that Under Siege is basically The Rock, but on a boat.
Yeah, it's the floating rock. It's a glacier, essentially.
Pretty good, man. All right, what else you got? What is another team? Teams.
All right, here's one of my favorites, but I know you're going to wince at it, and I'm trying to think if I should hit it now or later. I'll hit it. I'm going to hit it now.
Hit it. Can he hit it? Yes, you can.
Great baller action movie. One of those movies that makes me want to fucking fight people. I think it's so awesome. Can find pretty much, I don't want to say there's nothing wrong with it. There's plenty wrong with it, but it's fucking awesome every time I watch it. And I know you hate it because you're dumb. The Warriors. The Warriors has some of the coolest team dynamics.
Hey, for this list, you can have the Warriors. I'll give it to you. They're a good team. They at least have their shit together as a team. It doesn't make it a good movie.
I love, and I said we were going to hit this later, and this is where we can hit it. I love the idea of the guy down the chain that thinks he's ready to take over, and the leader puts him down. And that happens in this movie with a couple of words and a look. And I just think that's so much cooler than having the established leader who we are rooting for as the audience because he's the protagonist knock down the jock or the heavy that's usually a physically imposing guy, but he lacks the subtlety, he lacks the intelligence, he lacks the forethought to be the leader. And so we know that, but he
like
can't.
That he's a dick. You just like that he's a dick.
No, well, in this movie, it's in Warriors, it's Ajax, played by James Remar.
Yeah.
And you have Swan, who's the leader, who is the de facto leader in this, because he's not the original leader in the Warriors. The original leader, Cleon, gets ambushed and taken down. So Swan becomes this leader in the middle, in the heat of battle, so to speak. And at one point, Ajax is like, I should be war chief. I should be the leader. And Swan just looks at him and is like, it's not the time for this. And another guy chimes in and is like, not now, Ajax. And Ajax backs down. I just think like he could have said no. And he does say, I should be the leader. And they just look at him and Swan looks at him. And I just love that he's like, you couldn't do this. And Ajax eventually is kind of like, you're kind of right. And I think that's so fucking cool. I love this movie doesn't have as, in my opinion, even though Walter Hill wrote and produced both movies, I don't think this movie has the depth and dynamic of characterization that the Space Marines do. There's a couple key guys who are important, but for the most part, it's just this group of kids who lives in this weird pseudo-futuristic gang society, and they literally backs to the wall, back to back, bop their way back to Coney. And I just think it's so cool that they're like, we're behind enemy lines and we need to get from here to there. We're going to put all of our petty squabbles aside, even though I'm not really supposed to be the leader and you're definitely not the leader. Well, fuck it. We're going to go back and we're going to go back hard. And I just think, I feel like these guys have been in fights together. These guys have saved each other's asses together. And these guys would take a punch or a kick or even a knife for each other. And I just, again, you start that movie and I believe that going in, just how it's set up, how it's written, how it's delivered.
Brothers in Arms for sure. That movie's interesting for people who don't know. Basically, it's in like this sort of fake history New York where all the gangs wear goofy fucking costumes. They're kind of cool. I am deriding the movie more than it deserves just because it's a gimmick that we have. So the Warriors, they all wear like, I don't know, was it Native
Vests,
American themed vest? Yeah. But there's like
leather vests with like skulls and chief Native American looking headdresses on the back.
Yeah. But there's like the baseball furies are these dudes with like painted faces and baseball bats. There's a bunch of dudes with top hats and roller skates. But all the gangs are brought together for like a truce and they're going to make some money. And this is where you get the big line. I'm sure everybody has heard, can you dig it? And this one, like, I don't know, gangster is going to unite all the gangs. He gets assassinated and everybody blames the Warriors. And so they were way out of their element. They are way off their turf and they have to get back from where they were on the south side of New York and get all the way back to Coney Island.
And all the other gangs are after them whole way because they think they destroyed this truce that was going to make everybody profit, make everybody a stronger gang as a whole.
Yeah. So they just have to like fight their way back. But spoiler alert, they do very little fighting. They mostly run away and throw a couple of punches.
See, Rumi and I watch a different movie at that point because I see these guys just fucking fighting, just slamming gang after gang down and kicking ass. And
I see them throw 2 punches and then run away and then do a lot of running and then punch a few times. I mean, it's not that they're not fighting. I'm just saying that is not a swashbuckling movie by any means. It is more a movie about running and hiding and trying to hang, not get beat up.
And throwing people through toilet stalls and into windows and through the top of doors and into oncoming trains. Every
couple scenes they do start a fight. They never finish a fight. They just run away. I mean, literally. But
that's part of they need to get from the idea is not to win the fight. The idea is to get home.
I understand the plot. The plot's solid. I'm not complaining about the plot. I'm just complaining that the movie does not have enough actual.
Do you
fight
agree
scenes.
that the team is like it's a good team dynamic? It's a good team movie.
I'm giving you that for this list. Absolutely. You feel like they are a gang that has survived in the tough streets of New York together. They obviously aren't eating the hot dogs at Coney Island. They are, training and doing their cardio because they run real good.
Look, there's even a song on the soundtrack called "Nowhere to Run."
Maybe if they had a better fight choreographer, maybe I like it better. But because they're just not, I don't know. There's nothing entertaining. The fights just don't grab me. They're fine.
Not fancy. It's bare knuckle shit. This is funny. We got to get someone from that show, someone to be on this show.
Why? Because they can tell me what an idiot I am.
The second I started saying that, I was like some of the show's going to be like, yeah, no, he's right. That movie kind of sucks. Yeah. The fight choreographer. I'll try to get him on here.
If we ever get to do a live show, I will absolutely do the Warriors with you and take all the hate and just make it happen.
A live show, like a live screening of it, you mean?
Yeah. I would do a live screening of the Warriors any day.
That'd be pretty funny.
Because it's a unique movie. It's very, very unique. It definitely is not.
That's like one of my
on a limb.
Ride or die, like true fucking love. I am on board for that. Like, you know what it is? This is the best way to describe it. I would watch that movie if there's no channels anymore. But if I was flipping through the channels and that movie was halfway on, I would stop and watch it, And there's very few movies that I could say that I would do that with. Absolutely.
Let me see if this fits your list. Let me ask you this.
A League of Their Own counts, yes.
Yes, exactly. Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze, because they are already a team at this point. The first one, they're kind of a team.
Any Ninja Turtle, in any iteration, it could have been comics or whatever, but like any iteration. But they did not make my list on purpose, and I'd love to know why they're on your list.
They're on my list because they acknowledge the archetype of a team. Leonardo leads, Donatello does machines, Raphael is cool but rude, and Michelangelo is a party dude. So you have your leader. You have to have a leader. You got to have your leader. Cyclops is a leader for a reason. Donatello does. You have to have your smart guy. You got to have your tech guy. You got to have your wizard. Again, it's always goes back to the original 4 archetypes for fucking D&D. You got your leader, who's usually the warrior. You got your wizard. You got your bruiser. Raphael is cool but rude.
Sure.
I don't think they in later iterations of it, like Raphael is a beefier turtle. They play him as the bruiser.
Yeah.
And then your wild card, Michelangelo's the party dude. He's there to we don't know what he's going to do. Wild card, bitches. You have to have that. That's what balances you out. In the X-Men, Wolverine's your wild card. You have to
comparing Michelangelo to Wolverine.
I'm just saying, as the archetypes, you fit the slots. You have your archetypes to a team.
All right. I'll give it to you. That actually makes sense, and I didn't think of it that way. But you're right. They are a very good, prototypical team. And they say it in the song, and it's a catchy fucking song. It's fucking great. So because the Ninja Turtles really shine at exemplifying the archetypes of a team, and they work as a team and as a family, as brothers, and that they love weird pizzas with anchovies and fish heads on it and goofy shit like that. And I just always loved how the Ninja Turtles gave each other shit, but also pushed each other to be better martial artists, to be better teammates, to be better at hiding or whatever it is they were trying to do. They always pushed themselves and pushed each other. And, Ninja Turtles are just always a classic for me.
Fucking love Ninja Turtles.
I remember they pushed Michelangelo into doing birthday parties, and they pushed Raphael into surfing.
Raphael became a magician, dude.
Yeah, that's what it was. Years and years and years ago, we did an episode about like worst toys, and we covered a bunch of the random ass like 13th string of Playmates.
Ninja Turtles, man.
Ninja Turtle toys, including like birthday party Michelangelo and like all that random shit where you're like, wait, what? That's just a costume on Leonardo for absolutely no reason.
While Michelangelo's blowing up a fucking balloon animal, he's like, I threw a man with razor blades on his wrists into a trash truck and watched
off a building
crushed. In later iterations, I've traveled through time. I've traveled through dimensions. I've been on stage with Vanilla Ice. And here I am blowing up this goddamn balloon.
I love in your idea. Like, I don't think, like, I love it in your idea, which I think is different than when Playmates released the figure. Yours is like down on his luck in the skids, Michelangelo. Like, his career is behind him and over, and now this is what he's got to do to buy jelly bean pizza, right? Is to fucking blow up balloon animals. I traveled through time. I gotta make this kid a fucking lion. That's pretty good.
Would it be funny? The surprise at the end of The Last Ronin is only 3 of the other, like, there's only 2 dead turtles. There's one last Ronin, and then Michelangelo's like, I got out of there a long time ago. I've been doing birthday parties for years.
He's just a sad clown. Like, the foot soldiers feel bad for him, so they don't even try to kill him. They're just like, that fate is a fate worse than death.
I can't remember what his name was as a clown. Hey, fun fact. Your clown name, you ready for this, Ruby? Your clown name is your first name plus your last name. There's your clown name. You got it.
I think in my case, that's definitely fair. I remember I was on a movie, an alien movie, and in the trailer, there were 2 directors, and one of the directors had a daughter, and she was in our trailer the whole time because she thought it was cool. And it wasn't a trailer, it was like a room. But she was playing with all our shit. We had all these like latex hands and shit like that. And then I started doing not real magic, but like fake ass terrible sleight of hand that could fool a little 7-year-old girl, but not like a human. And I remember she looked at me and she got so excited and she said, Rumi's doing sleight of hand right now. How did you do that? She was like, you're magic. And then she thought about it and she went, you're a clown. I was like, I don't think you know what clowns are, but you're not mistaken. I'm more of a clown than a magician. That's for sure.
I used to do magic. And then I realized, like, I can't do magic into high school. I'll be destroyed. They'll kill me. I can't do this. And I also realized that, like, I was doing it to do birthday parties and make a little money, and it was fun. But, like, little kids don't give a shit.
After I made the 3rd kid disappear, I decided I should probably do visual effects.
But literally, you can look at a kid, hold your closed fist up with nothing in it, and just open your empty hand and go, ta-da, and they go,
yeah. You could trick them into thinking magic. You don't really have to do anything.
You don't really have to do anything. You'd be like, look over there, and they all turn, and you could throw it behind your back and be like, ta-da. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be good at it. You
ever have a kid show you magic where they show you a penny and then they put it in their hand and then they put their hand in their pocket and pull their hand back out and open their hand and there's no penny and they're like, disappeared.
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck you, Tom. I watched you do that.
I watched you put it in your pocket. I love the kids who are like, now turn around. No.
Yeah.
Close your eyes. No. Put this blindfold on. You're not kidnapping me or making that quarter disappear. So lose.
Nice try, Michelangelo.
Oh, so good. Yeah, I don't know. Ninja Turtles is always just a solid team.
I think, we're just getting it right back into that scene. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is actually a really good one. I guess I specifically thought of the movie, and I was like, the movie does a really good job. The first movie does a really good job of Leo versus Raph. The TMNT animated movie did a really good job of the two of them, and actually the other guys as well. But I guess I wasn't I guess it's more like the overall idea of those four turtles, and the comics and some of the later cartoons did a much better job of developing them as a team. But you're right. I think they are a pretty good prototypical.
And like, I don't hate the Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It really is just like special effects movie with these guys. It's a special effects movie where like they literally were like, how do we get this scene where they're sliding down a hill in snow? And like, there's no snow anywhere near New York. And they're like, we'll just have them drive for 5 minutes in the movie. And you're like, doesn't make any sense. But at the end of the day, like for a big action spectacle with turtles, who cares?
It wasn't good, but I didn't hate it as much. Like, I was going in thinking I would hate it. And it's like, I don't care. Like, it's fine.
There's other versions that I like less than this. And it's not necessarily like any worse, but it's just like, keep making versions, like keep making it. As long as the archetypes are there or who the characters are, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fun. Right?
Yeah, I agree. Okay. I'll put them on my team list.
All right. Who do you got?
Speaking of team list, let's see. All right. I'll hit you with another strong one.
Okay.
My absolute favorite cowboy movie, Wild Bunch.
Oh, yeah.
That movie starts and they're in the ranger costumes. They're in the good guy costumes, and they end up doing this huge heist that turns into a absolute massacre. And you know that these guys are not to be fucked with. And then they get back to where they are, and it turns out there's a setup, and they find all these washers instead of money. But there's that thing where there's two brothers in the gang. And again, that's your Drake and your Vasquez characters who are they're their own separate thing, but they're not really happy with the leader, Pike, I think his name is, William Holden. And they're not really happy. And one of them's like, I should be the leader. And Pike is like, fuck you, try it. And again, he's like, well, I think I should be, but you keep being the leader for now. It's just, I love that like Mad Dog Wolf thing of like, I'm the alpha. If you want to try to take me down, go ahead, but get ready. And I just think that I like that. I think that's cool. But
I don't know if I've ever seen a movie where that has been played out, where like somebody's like, I should be leader, and they're like, go ahead, and they do, and they win. I've never seen a movie where
the bigger guy wins,
where the person challenging the leadership takes over. Like there's a coup.
I think I have, but then the leader always comes back, right? Didn't that happen in Black Panther? Didn't he lose his seat in something?
Yes, you're right.
I think that happens a couple. And I feel like I've seen it, but I couldn't give you too many examples. But
like, no, he just kills him. Like that's how the movie starts. Is this new person
the
becoming
leader just
a leader?
Goes down, and now you're like this loose cannon kind of fists before brains guy is in charge.
Yeah,
I'd watch that.
That'd be an interesting way to kick a movie off. Like start with like, the archetypes have been switched. That's a good way to kick a movie.
Because you wouldn't expect it, right? You'd think that what you may make out to be the main character is, I could see that. But this movie I love, and William Holden plays the leader, and his ride or die, his sidekick is Ernest Borgnine. And Ernest Borgnine just does whatever William Holden says. And I don't think it comes from it comes from a submissive place, but it looks like he idolizes William Holden. And if William Holden says, waste everyone in this town, if William Holden says, ride into hell, if William Holden says, stay in this room until I come back, Ernest Borgnine's going to do it. And he says numerous times, he's got a line in the movie where he keeps saying, I'll do whatever until hell freezes over or you tell me different. And that movie happens, and that if you haven't seen Wild Bunch, it's so fucking good. But spoiler alert, at the end, they essentially march into what should be impending doom. And Ernest Borgnine is literally sitting outside waiting for it. And William Holden just walks out, looks at him, and starts walking. And Ernest Borgnine just gets up and he's like, yes, because he's waiting for it and he needs his leader to give him that okay. And to me, just those guys, even if there's hate amongst them in the group as individuals, they are a unit and they're going to take down the bank. They're going to take down the train. They're going to take down the whole fucking Spanish, not Armada, but the Spanish army, if that's what they're trying to do. The Mexican army, I think it is.
Yeah.
I just love that. Like, we're brothers. And, you know,
Yeah.
I guess brothers don't always have to love each other, but brothers are brothers, and that's there, you know?
It's ride or die for sure. That movie's so interesting because it really is about the end of an era, the end of cowboys, and they keep realizing that they're getting old. Their position in the world as bandits no longer exist. There's no need for bandits. There's no real desire for bandits. And they're coming up against technology in weapons that is making them feel old. And they go out with guns blazing one last ride and kill probably 300 people in this glorious shootout.
Cool. That movie is
oh
so
my
good.
God. Once Ernest Borgnine gets on that fucking Gatling gun, just
World War I machine gun.
It's just incredible. Yeah, that.
But I just feel
great.
that's one of those movies. Again, at any given scene, I'm just like, this is the 100th time that these 5 guys have done this together. You know, I believe it. I believe it. Hook, line, and sinker.
Okay. How about the Ghostbusters?
I was thinking about that. Hit me. Give me your thoughts.
So the Ghostbusters, as they are, you have Egon, Ray, and Peter Venkman.
Sure.
Egon Spengler, Ray Stantz, Peter Venkman, and then they hire Winston Zeddemore, who always gets left off the promotional material, probably because he's black. That's not fair. That's not right, guys. Come on, let's keep Winston.
He also
in the
doesn't
picture.
know a lot about ghosts. To be fair,
He's like, look,
he's the only non-PhD in the group, right?
I've seen shit that'll turn you white. I fucking love Ernie Hudson in that movie. And they're professors, paranormal professors. They've been friends forever. They have this paranormal department at the college they work at. Obviously, they've been a team for a long time, and they have been getting shit from the dean for ages, which to me is like, that's a movie in its own right. Not one that we need to see. Please don't make that movie. That
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, right.
It's the, Ghostbuster house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but you know that they've been catching some shit for years because at the beginning of Ghostbusters, they get kicked out of the college, and they're like, "What are we going to do to make money? What are we going to do?" And they're like, "We're going to go into business for ourselves. We can do this, right?" And they become the ghost-busting team, but you know they've been friends forever. They know they've been through the ups and downs forever. You know they know their little quirks. They're like, huh, Peter Venkman's off like lightly sexually harassing women. That's cool. Silly Peter. Ray
getting blowjobs from ghosts.
Hey, busting makes him feel good, man. What can you do? Man, Ghostbusters is way more problematic than I thought going into this conversation.
Some good action figures, though.
Fuck yeah. And great comic books and some sweet tech. I got a proton pack now, man. Let me tell you. But they become a team. They put it together. They become a business, and they bust some ghosts. I grew up on that cartoon, so like watching it religiously. I had the little blue backpack, the blue proton pack, that goofy PKE meter with the
spinning on the back,
spinning things. Oh, I just got the Geiger meter. I just got a Geiger meter. You want to see it?
Yeah.
It's right here. Let me grab it real quick. Here, vamp for a little bit. Vamp for a second. Say some shit.
Okay. Ugh, now I gotta look up more stupid bullshit that this idiot bought. Oh, look, and he walks away with his man bun. Good. Maybe you should get a haircut instead of a fucking PKE meter. Welcome to have you. Good to have you back.
Good to have you back. It wasn't too long. Hey, check this thing out. I got this sweet PKE meter, and it turns on.
For people who are not watching, first of all, you should watch the YouTube because you get to see cool shit like this. Kind of see it. What is this from, Rooms?
So this is from Ghostbusters 2. This is a prop. This is called the Geiger meter. I'm gonna
turn your background off.
I am. Video setting. Oh, background effects? None. Here you get to see my boring background.
For those of you who can't see it, it kind of looks like when you go to Disney on Ice. Oh yeah, look at those little antenna. They look like little recording microphones. Testing.
It's exactly what they are. This is built from an old recorder, and it has a spinning device in the middle. It has a little knob on the side, and this is called the Geiger meter. But it was first seen in Ghostbusters 2, and I got it from John Wrightson. So thanks, John Wrightson. Much appreciated, bro.
Who's John Wrightson?
He is one of our makeup effects artists. He's a fucking incredible talent as a sculptor.
But he didn't make that, did he?
No.
He bought it from him?
He bought it from a different prop maker, and I bought it from him. Because he's like, cool. He's like, it was fun. I had it, but I don't use it anymore. And you just bought a proton pack. I think you need this. I was like, I think I need it too.
You do. You could almost like you're 50% of the way to busting your own ghosts.
Busted makes me feel good.
It's like in the NES video game where you have to like buy traps and you're like, where would you fucking buy ghost traps from?
Can we not talk about the NES video game? That video game sucks so bad. Like, oh my God.
That could be a whole episode. It's just how hard that game sucks.
How bad that game sucked. But the one that came out for a generation ago, the Ghostbusters game, it was just called, it was so good. Wow, that's all you wanted from a video game. They nailed it. Like I could not, right. 10 out of 10.
Let me ask you this though. As far as the team goes, you said, like your argument for Turtles was that the Turtles have these necessary tropes. They fulfill these things that teams should have.
Yep.
Why do you feel Ghostbusters is the same?
Sure. You have so Egon's the brains. He's obviously doing the tech. Ray is the mechanic. He's fixing the car. He's making the like the physical like boots on the ground stuff work. And then Peter Venkman's the sexy one. He's drumming up business by being a sexy motherfucker. And Winston's your heavy. He's the one who's like, look, you pay me, I'll show up and spray the wall with fucking ghost blood. I don't care. Like you tell me what needs to get done, I'm gonna fucking come here and do it. He's their tank, man. So it's like they fit the molds, sort of. It's much looser for Ghostbusters. It's definitely not as defined as like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but they're a team. And here's what I like about it: they're kind of sloppy, and that's kind of what makes it fun. They usually
You're like the Bad News Bears of teams, huh?
Hey,
why do we put Bad News Bears on the list?
That was the fifth one on my list, but we weren't going to do sports teams, so they're definitely the blue collar team. That lends right into my next one.
Okay, go ahead, take it.
Let me see if I have anything else to say about Ghostbusters. Nope, that's it.
Slimer.
Slimer's funny. Slimer funny. Remember when he just became like the goofy, like the cartoon made him a sidekick, but then when it became the real Ghostbusters and Slimer, like his goofy level ramped up to 12.
I'm the baby, gotta love me. It's like, no, it was fine.
Yeah, that's when I was
fine.
That's when the cartoon pissed me off. I love like the original like first 2 seasons, but when it went to Ghostbusters and Slimer, I was like, look,
Jensen's been really into Ghostbusters, and we've been watching the original couple seasons.
They're fun.
We've only watched the first couple, and we do it out of order or whatever. And we don't really, I'm watching it with him, so I'm not watching all the episodes. But some of them are really fucking good with great stories, like the Boogeyman, and I forget which character.
So
but one of them is like afraid of the Boogeyman.
The Boogeyman as an adult,
it's almost like It level of like scarring and trauma. It's great. But to me, watching those now, again, I haven't watched them by myself where I could focus. I don't notice a difference between the teammates. I don't notice that like this guy is this. Obviously, Egon's is the brain, and Venkman is like the clown. I think he's the Michelangelo of the group. Mm-hmm. But I don't like Ray is just kind of interchangeable with Winston, at least in what I've seen so far. So that, and I know the movies are different too, but even that, I can't tell you too much of what Ray did versus what Winston did specifically in the movies. So I'm not thinking that, but anyway, go ahead with your other.
Speaking of like teams that suck, but get their ass kicks, but get it done at the end of the day. I wanted to bring up Mystery Men.
Interesting. When do you think the last time that title / group came up on a podcast? Opening weekend?
Anybody who has a Flaming Carrot podcast.
Okay.
So never.
Yeah.
So the Mystery Men was a movie, for those of you who don't know.
Which is actually a really funny movie. Like, I remember liking it. I didn't see it until long after its initial release, but I thought it was way better than like Life gave it credit for at the time.
So, yeah. So it's a 1999 American superhero comedy film. And for what it was doing, I think it deserves more credit than for what it actually pulled off, if that makes sense.
Sure. That's a good way to say it.
So Mystery Men is based off of Bob Burden's Flaming Carrot comics. And for those of you like, wait, what? Flaming Carrot is a blue-collar hero whose head turns into a giant carrot that shoots flames out of it. You're like, wait, that wasn't in that 1999 movie. You're right, it wasn't, because they based it on the background characters of the Flaming Carrot universe, which were the Mystery Men, which were people with unspecific shitty powers that Bob Burton created. It had a stellar cast. I'm talking Ben Stiller, Hank Azaria, William H. Macy, Greg Kinnear, Janine Garofalo, Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman himself, Kel Mitchell from Kenan and Kel. Jeffrey Rush was the bad guy. Eddie Izzard is in it.
That's the one I remember the most.
And Tom Waits. Fucking Tom Waits is in this thing. It's a total bomb. The movie bombed. But what it was trying to do is basically what Watchmen succeeded at doing, which was, let's take these superhero tropes, break them down, and put that into a completely different context. And which obviously that formula worked later. That became bread and butter. That's why we have what we have now, is because people were breaking down and deconstructing superhero genres. And that's why we're exhausted of superheroes movies now. This one tried to do it first, and everybody went, yawn. Why didn't Ben Stiller make a funny movie? It's like, that's not fair. I don't love this. I really don't love this movie. But at the end of the day, I think it deserves so much more credit for trying to do something that we didn't know we wanted. But the guy who wrote it, Bob Burton, he's like, yeah, he was way ahead of his time in this concept. Whether the movie pulled that off or not, sure, up for debate. Some people love it. Literally this week was like, somebody was talking about how much they love this movie. And I was like, that movie? And yeah, it's like my favorite movie of all time. I was like, why? I was like, because it took the piss out of superheroes way before we knew they needed it. And it's like, before we had The Boys, before we had Watchmen, you had Mystery Men. And I was like, that's interesting. And it's a completely dysfunctional team of failure idiots who have to come together to save the day. And I was like, that is definitely worth talking about. That's something that's interesting.
I agree. And I remember, like I said, I didn't see it when it first came out, and I wasn't into superheroes at the time. I saw it way later and was like, why aren't more people talking about this? It's not great, but it's better than it is touted as. And then it was one of those where, I think a couple years went by, and maybe even it could have even been with you or when I lived with you. It came back on my radar, and I was like, let me watch this again and see if it's as good as I remember it being. And it is. And again, it's not the first, it's not the best, but it does what you just said. It's funny you said Watchmen. That's like one of those roomy things where I was going to compare it to Watchmen. It is not as good as Watchmen in any arena, but it does try to do something different that most of us have not seen before. And I think it succeeded at what it was trying to do, just not commercially,
Now, here's something interesting about it. You remember back in the 90s where movies all came out with fucking bitchin' soundtracks? I'm looking at you, Godzilla.
Fuck yeah, I do. I was just listening to the Mortal Kombat soundtrack with Ken the other day.
The Crow, Matrix. This one absolutely came with a fucking baller ass soundtrack that had some pretty interesting some things on it. But most notably, it was the first one to have a little song by Smash Mouth on it. Before your favorite Green Ogre had it, they were in the original music video for it, All Star by Smash Mouth.
Oh.
Do you need me to sing it for you, Rumi?
I don't need it, but I want it.
Somebody once told me.
I like that you did it from the beginning. I thought you were just going to go from the chorus, but I like that you went.
An all-star. So that movie didn't belong to Shrek first. It started as the one of the big songs for this movie, and the scenes from this movie were the music video for All-Star. How about that?
Great. Facts. And then Shrek was like, we could use that because no one saw that movie. Don't worry about it.
Literally, that's what it says here talking about this. It's like they didn't want to waste the song, so they tried to find another movie that could use it because it felt like it was a waste.
In the bargain bin there, they were like, this song is still good. Anybody want this song? Barely used. New condition. This song is in new condition.
Gonna be a huge hit. Just gotta find the right ogre to pair it with.
Well, I still have, we're like an hour in. I still have one or two decent ones. And then I could probably pare that down to one and do some honorable mentions. Where are you at in your list?
Let's see. Not a sports team. No, that's a sports team too. The Miami Sharks.
You can do sports team if you feel like they were together.
the Bears, the Milwaukee Bears.
It's like Miami Sharks. There's a movie about Miami Sharks.
Any Given Sunday. Not real sharks. It's a football team.
I want to watch a movie. What was there was a Sharks, San Jose Sharks. There's a hockey team called the San Jose Sharks. I would watch a movie. You pick the genre where they have to deal with real sharks. That would be cool.
Little giants.
And they have to use hockey skills to get out of the trouble. Situational and over the course of the movie.
So I got one I could do here. Yeah, I got one or two.
All right. Okay, here's one that is not the first on my list, and it might be the most subtle, but Outpost 31, like the guys in the thing, I believe that they were at that outpost together. I believe that was their job. I believe that McCready, and the book is a lot different than the movie, but I believe that McCready is a helicopter pilot, and that's his job. But he hates being stuck there. He hates being with these fucking eggheads doing their experiments. I believe that all those guys were there. I think when the guy, the burned out druggy guy, says that he was waiting for old Capitan to use his pop gun, I think that one throwaway line has an undercurrent of tension that all these men, like, can you imagine? I've been to like camps with teams. We've both been on movie sets, right? Where we're away from home, stuck with people who maybe are not the people we want to be with, sometimes sharing, a hotel room or at least, an apartment or something, or even a trailer with. But like, can you imagine being away from humanity and just with a handful of other dudes in a pretty small space that you are literally not able to go outside? There's so much there. That's why that movie's so fucking great. But I feel like those guys all did their job. They all know the rules. They all know what they're supposed to do. I was talking with my friend today about like being stuck in space. She was explaining why it's hard to do like a, what's the word? Realistic astronaut murder whodunit. Because like 4 of you go up into space, there's only 4 of you. If you kill one of them, there's only 3 people left. One of them is the murderer. The other 2 are wondering who did it. It's not a great whodunit. And also, you kind of need everybody in a spaceship to function the spaceship. And I feel like that's kind of what this outpost, it's 31, right? Outpost 31?
Yeah, I just want to prove you wrong about this murder whodunit in space, man. I'm going to write a whole script just to
we already are writing it. It's called Scream in Space.
It's on Scream 6 in space.
It's called Nobody Can Hear You in Space. Nobody Can Hear You Scream 6.
But I guess it's going to have to be Scream 7 now since they put Scream 6 in.
Nice job, Hollywood.
God.
But like, I think in this movie, you have all these guys where it doesn't matter if you like them or if you love them or if you're friends with them or you're just co-workers or if you can't stand them, you need that fucking guy because he does this job, And when that shit happens and clearly McCready steps up as the de facto leader in that group over the captain, I just think that, again, that group just, to me, I believe that those guys have been stuck in the snow together for months before this happens,
100%. And it's one of those interesting ones where it's like that group dynamic phrase at the edges when introduced to all this like intense anxiety, intense paranoia. And that's what makes that movie so good, is to see the team fall apart. Lots of movies show teams fall apart, but very few of them do it in a way that is so subtle, but also so effective.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also agree that you could have done that a lot more heavy-handedly.
Yeah.
And still been okay. But I feel like those guys are trying to stick together. They're trying to be diplomatic and democratic about how they're doing shit. But eventually McCready just takes the fucking flamethrower and holds the dynamite up to it. And it's like, everyone listens to me, period. I know great. I'm not the thing. And I have a way to test it. I'm going to show you. But you 3 have to get tied to that chair first. I just, it's Lord of the Flies-esque almost. You know what I mean? Where it's like, you're now, you were in civilization, before the thing came. Now things are changed. How does that change your society? But I believe that those humans were living together. I just think that's a great example of a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's tough. Like you said, so many of these movies are about inventing the team, putting the team together, the follies and trials of trying to make a team come together and make a team work. but like, it's interesting to dissect it a little bit when they are pre-existing. We've already been through the day one. We already have been through day 20. We're been hundreds of days in this environment. And now this is when it falls apart. Cause like, we see plenty of movies where it falls apart early, and plenty of movies show how that happens. But this is like the end game, which is, I mean, The Thing's one of the best movies of all time. So let me hit you. I guess this can be my last one. How about this?
Okay, let's each do one more last, and then
one more.
We could throw some honorable mentions down if we want.
Yeah. How about the team / band of the Hong Kong Cavaliers with Buckaroo Banzai?
It's pretty good. I like that a lot.
So
I didn't even think of that, but I like that a lot.
This is a cult film that is super weird. Peter Weller, Ellen Barkin, John Lithgow, Jeff Goldblum, and Christopher Lloyd are in this movie. I don't know if I can explain the plot of this movie. It's got a lot going on.
Not coherently.
But basically, Buckaroo Banzai, Peter Weller's one of the world's greatest scientists, and he's invented this like dimensional travel thing, but he also has a band, and the band's super cool. So we cut back and forth between his band doing cool shit and his super science doing cool shit. And then these aliens want the super science, and Jeff Goldblum shows up in a pink fuzzy cowboy outfit, and he wants to be part of the team. And they're like, yeah, just sit in this room. And then some aliens show up, and there's lots of special effects and some crazy band scenes where they're just rocking out. And like, I don't know if I can explain what Buckaroo Banzai is other than super scientist who has a band, man.
Yeah. And it's every bit as awesome as you want that sentence to translate to.
And it really bounces around all over the place. Like, it is an incoherent film, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I understand why this is a cult classic, because you're like, what the fuck is that? Don't care. Here comes cool aliens. Hey, Christopher Lloyd's in this movie. Jeff Goldblum, you rascal. I like it, and I get that if anybody's like, I hate that movie, it doesn't make any sense. You're like, you're right, and you don't have to like it. But
I'm not arguing with you.
Liking it is just why I hate it when you can like it and have fun. Like, and get the fucking band with super scientist in it. And figure out what happens with the oscillation overthruster. Yep, that's what that is in that movie.
Sure. Copy that.
The Hong Kong Cavaliers are super fun. It's like an 80s synth rock band with some guitars and shit going on. But like, again, here's a team that plays instruments but also helps super scientists. Come on, like, I buy it.
That's kind of Ninja Turtles-esque. They played instruments and also did a lot of science on the side.
It's promoting core, dude. It's Common Core right there.
Guitars will forever make me think of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of their Shells tour. Forever. Because I think there was more than one guitar in the band. But just, I mean, you only really need one. After that, it's just excessive awesomeness.
I think it was the only thing that they could play with their giant foam fingers. They're like, guys, I hate to break it to you. I can't play guitar. I can't even hold a guitar pick. I can't push frets. How am I going to play a guitar? And like, can you play a keytar? Oh, I guess I can do that.
I mean, I can put my hands on it.
I can convincingly look like I'm playing.
Yeah, it looks more real. I think that the design. Do you remember what those turtles look like?
Yes, they had leather jackets and like punk rock.
But even their faces, they had giant faces. I think those turtles are what the rest of the Ninja Turtles have nightmares about. Like, I think like the turtles from the 1990 live action movie, when they would wake up from a scary dream, those turtles, the turtles coming out of their Shells tour turtles, is what they saw in their dreams. That's like scary people to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, is that face.
Not the ghost that blows them.
If you guys haven't seen that, and you're watching our wonderful faces on YouTube, take a quick pause and look up the Oprah video where they talk to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you're like, holy shit, this happened and I didn't know about it?
I'm looking at the pictures of this tour now. It's terrifying. They're all wearing like
fuel, for sure.
Jeans jackets. He's got a guitar. One of them has a saxophone.
I think that was Raphael.
Yeah, Raphael has a saxophone. One of them's holding a drum machine here, but I don't believe that for 1 second. they're wearing like leather studs, like they're glam rockers.
Yeah. Yo, they were, and their bandanas were all bedazzled. I partially think that coming out of their shells outfits, though, it was partly responsible for the bedazzler fad. I think people just wanted to look like the Rockin' Turtles.
Yeah, why are their faces so big? I think it's just to see them at a distance.
Yeah, and so that it looks like they're singing and shit. But it's like possibly the worst faces that they've ever had, even more so than the New Mutation live action TV show, which constantly gets shit on, right?
Oh my God. And Shredder doesn't even have a proper mask. Like, none of this is right. Nothing about this is okay. Ugh. I know that I know a bunch of people like bought the NECA toys of this too.
Oh, I know some of the people that worked on the actual costumes.
It's funny because I know that NECA put out like a box set of these and it like sold out so fucking fast. And I'm like, really? Those? That's the thing?
If we were at Comic-Con and that was a Comic-Con exclusive and we were also interviewing and meeting Kevin Eastman later in the day, we would have gotten that to get signed.
I would have bought two. I mean, you better believe it. But
did you buy one of the ones when I did the 1990 movie figures? Did you buy those and get those signed, or was it just me?
Only you did. I tried to do that, and they were out by the time I got there.
Yeah, those fucking things are cool.
They are very cool. Wow, this is terrifying though. Horrible.
I got one more. I'm gonna say team, but it's a loose team. But I believe it's more like I believe the interaction of the team. Which, are you laughing at me or what you're looking at?
No, I'm just laughing. I was going to make a joke about how I was going to make a diarrhea joke. Don't worry about it. Here, continue.
Just put me down for one diarrhea joke. I won't even say it. Just keep going. just put it in my stats.
Loose team. I was going to say something about loose stools, but
loose
don't
stool.
worry about
Yeah, I got you. Not only have I lived with you for a while, but like we all saw that coming down your leg. Okay. So this is one of those episodes that I prepped really quick and easy, writing the ones that I had off the top of my head. But I was like, okay, let me also just do a couple Google searches and see, like, what does the internet think are the best teams? And there was like Goonies was on there. I saw that. Saving Private Ryan, and I would put an extension of Band of Brothers, and those are really great. But I guess that's like built in, right? You're supposed to think that's a good team, so
you've skewed pretty military so far anyway.
Yeah, it seems like an obvious choice, right?
For sure.
One of the ones that was on that list is not one that I ever would have considered because I don't think it's a true team. However, it kind of is, and I love it. But the crew, quote unquote, of the Orca in Jaws with Quint and Brody and Hooper. And I just think, like, I don't think that's a team. That's not the Warriors. It's not Ninja Turtles. It's not, Space Marines, but it's three guys on a mission, crewing a boat, which I think would qualify as the technical definition of a team, but it's everything that the Space Marines are not. It's everything that the Warriors are not, where Hooper and Quint hate each other from the get-go. Brody is just literally out of his element, right? He hates the water, hates it, is terrified of it. Now he's surrounded on, 360 degrees by water with a man he doesn't know who, by all accounts, is a crazy fisherman. And they're on this crazy trek to try to hunt down an unknown beast. And he's like, they're just these three guys that are thrust into this boat on this odyssey together. And at any given scene, they act just like they should. And I don't believe that, like, whereas the Marines, I feel like this is their 100th time.
Yeah.
I believe that this is the first time these three guys have sat down at a table together, And
let me ask a question.
I love it.
Who is technically the leader of that? Who's technically the leader?
My boat, he says my boat, but he says your boat, but he says my charter. So I'm saying Brody because he is in charge, right?
He's the sheriff. This is exactly realizing the dynamic that's created here is so fascinating to me, because it's like the person who should not be in charge, the person who should not be doing this, the expert in this situation is certifiably insane. Like he is.
Sure. You're certifiable, Quint.
Exactly. The person who is in charge is terrified of the whole situation, out of his element, is not an expert. The only reason he's there is because he is responsible. And we kind of get that a little bit in Aliens. You know, they send the company man along, and they send the new sergeant along, and they send Ripley along. And even though she's the expert, she's not in charge whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of do that to her, but instead of sending Quint along, they send an entire Marine Corps. And then Hooper is your tech guy. He's your scientist. He's the person who has the technical know-how to help you get what you need out of this. And I love the dynamic that Quint respects Brody because he's the law, because he's a sheriff, because of his title. And he hates Hooper, but ends up respecting him because Hooper's magic, Hooper's wizardry ends up working in certain respects. So they kind of create that bond. They kind of create that team, that camaraderie because of their expertise. And even though they don't know how it's going to work out here on the ocean, it comes together and melds really well against all odds, that's why it just works so perfectly. Right.
And I feel like you have that triad. And I guess it is almost like when you think about the Turtles or the Space Marines, you have these three not necessary tropes, but these three completely different characters. And it's almost like the D&D reference you made earlier. Each of those guys has a set of skills, a set of experiences that are essential to the situation. They also have a set of weaknesses that are both individualized, and also it's a stronger weakness when he's standing next to Quint, or it's a stronger weakness when he's standing next to Hooper. And the dynamic between all of those, you need all three pieces of that triangle to make that boat go. You know what I mean? And I just think that at any given point, you're rooting for Brody. At any given point, you're rooting for Hooper. At any given point, you're rooting for Quint. And obviously the whole time you're rooting for the three of them. And I just think I love that movie so much. And some of the stuff, if not the stuff I love the most, is the three of them on the boat without any shark shit happening. Whether they're arguing or looking or chumming or singing or eating or Indianapolising, it's just, it really is. Is that ever been a verb?
Yeah, it is now.
But I think that's so cool. And I think that, and I guess when we're really talking about these teams, it's the dynamic, right? That's what we're probably drawn to the most. And I feel like this movie has, at least for me, such a giant draw in that piece of the film, you know?
It's the conveyance of a well-oiled dynamic that is necessary to achieve goals. And I think that is something that makes teams work. You know, even in all the sports teams that I researched that you threw out, they're well-oiled machines, even if they start sloppy.
Prayer for the Roller Boys does not count as a well-oiled sports movie, Ruby.
Mighty Ducks in Time does, though. So all these teams, even when they start out like Bad News Bears, they start out as a shit team full of goobers and whatever, you know, idiots, but they pull their shit together and they win the game at the end. And even if they lose, it's like, we learned how to be a team, and that's what matters. And I think especially, I'm fascinated by the idea, the dynamic that you brought up with Jaws. Now, in the book, there's an added element to that where Brody's kind of against everybody, and everybody. There's a much more antagonistic dynamic because, you know, in the movie, him and Hooper are kind of on the same team, and Quint is kind of on the other side of their dynamic. But in the book, Hooper's banging Brody's wife, and he's kind of aware of that. And so the dynamic is like, when he gets in the cage, he's like, I hope he dies in there. And it's like, I think changing that for the movie helped make it a more palatable thing, because if just everybody was out on the ocean being pissy at each other, like, that's Quint's job. It's Quint's job to be pissy.
Right.
If everybody's pissy, it's kind of a miserable thing. You're like, who do I root for here? Everybody's miserable, and I don't love that. You know, it's one of my ethoses about showing up to work is like, I'm going to try and be the most positive person I can there, because tons of people are going to be negative. That job's already spoken for, and there's going to be people who are way better at being negative today than I am. So don't do that because you'll lose. So it's like in a movie, if everybody's doing the same character or encroaching on other characters' sort of role, not just the job, not just the cranky fisherman, but if there's too many cranky people on that boat, like what does that become then? What does that do to the dynamic? I don't think it's fun to watch. You need the dynamics to play off each other. If everybody was cranky, then it'd be, I don't know, just a completely different movie.
Well, it's like if you think about the Space Marines, right? We love how those characters, any two of those characters talk to each other, but I wouldn't use the word dynamic because they're all on the same team, as you put it, right? All of the Space Marines are on the same team, even though they're ribbing, even though Hudson is so quick to give up and flip the fuck out. They're all on the same team and they all come from the same direction. You know what I mean? Whereas Hooper, Quint, and Brody are literally all coming from different walks of life. They all want different things out of this experience. You know what I mean? It really is three completely different beasts in one cage, whereas Space Marines, even though they're all individualized, they're all Space Marines, right? So I think that really speaks to the difference between how each of those groups functions, right? And what we can expect from them, what we like about them, what we grow with them with. It's very interesting to think about.
It is. The dynamic are different. Everybody on the Space Marines team signed up for that. That was we're here for a bug hunt. They're excited to do that job. Brody is not excited to be there. And like Hooper's excited to be there, but for a completely different reason. He wants to see the biggest shark he's ever seen. Like he has a scientific view, and Quint thinks they're both silly. It's right. Yeah. Well, and he has a bigger archetype to fill, bigger shoes to fill, in that respect. But it's interesting. That's a good dynamic, and that's a good comparison. And like when you look at other teams, like the classic, the Ninja Turtles. Again, I'll always come back to them as like a classic archetype team. Like you said, they're all coming from the same place, and that rivalry, the rivalries, and the obstacles can be different. Bumping against your role in the team, or bumping against the situations that you're up against. But I love that you brought up a team that literally doesn't work well together.
Yeah, and I actually have another one of those too. But like this is one of those that like it's a good lesson, kids. Even if you think you know your shit, do your research, because I had plenty to talk about. I thought all my teams made good, even if you disagreed with my ideas, it was a good talking point and would be good for the show. But I was like, let me just do a little bit of extra Googling and see what are some other vibes of some people. And I never would have thought of that because I don't think it is a traditional team. But the more you think about it, it still is a team, and it certainly is worthy of discussion, I think, in the same conversation as the rest of these guys, right?
Absolutely. Fascinating. Good one, Remy.
You want to hear another we won't go into it for time wise, but I thought Reservoir Dogs was a really good unteam team because they're thrown together. I mean, the nonlinear storytelling in and of itself, we don't know how these guys know each other and shit, right? Let alone like we don't know who they are because they're not real characters. They're just colors, right?
They're just colors. But
it's cool that there's all these different guys.
We have to get into a heist.
Oh yeah, that would be a good one.
I would love, because I love a heist film. I love a good heist film. I love the whole build your team, and then there's always the one guy and he's like, he's new, he's cool. No, but he's not cool. He's the one who flips out first. That's a very good point about Reservoir Dogs.
But I like that. I like because and again, that's more like the dynamic versus the team. They're not a strong team, but watching any two of those characters interact was magic on the screen, right? I love them. Same with the Dirty Dozen I put on that list of not a good team, but interesting to watch. And I love the original Dirty Dozen because they don't trust each other. They don't, they eventually are like, they're the original Suicide Squad. If you guys haven't watched Dirty Dozen, it's not special. I think it was better at the time than it is now. But when you watch it, it literally is the first Suicide Squad. And there comes a point in the movie where pretty much almost every character is like, I have to do this mission. It's in my benefit to do the best I can. So I'll deal with these other people. And there's a couple wild cards. There's a couple smart cards. There's a couple bruiser cards. There's a couple, I'm an innocent inmate, but I will do this if that's what it takes. And one of the wild cards fucked it up. Like something happens in the movie where one of the wild cards goes Mr. Blonde level crazy and it jeopardizes the entire mission for everybody. I think that's a fun non-team team.
I had Suicide Squad and Dirty Dozen on here. Seven Samurai I had on here.
I had Seven Samurai / Magnificent Seven.
Yep.
For sure. I think that's a really good one. And that's actually cool because you see what we've been talking about, like the established team, but you also kind of see them kind of get scooped up, right? You see the assembling of the squad.
Oh, I was about to go on a tangent about the Goon Squad, not the Toon Squad, not the Bugs Bunny basketball team, but the ones they have to fight, who are the bad guys who steal the powers of Muggsy Bogues and Patrick.
The McDonald's toys that I always wanted and never got.
I talking about them because here's a team that is if they don't do their job, like Suicide Squad, they're going to be killed by their boss. And so they have to fight Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan, which is, no big feat. And then of course, Bill Murray shows up and he doesn't play defense. So he doesn't really play in the game, but it's cool.
I had another one that I really debated putting on this because you watch the original Star Wars trilogy, which is the only one that really exists to me, even though the other movies do have their place, even the prequels. But the original Star Wars trilogy, you have Han and Chewie. And there are scenes where I feel like that's Matt and Aaron. That's guys who have fucking flown from this end of the galaxy to the other. But I almost didn't put it on there because I didn't know if I was biased, because I've also read how many comics, how many novels, how many video games, how many fucking Kenner adventures have I had myself that I'm like, can I really differentiate between how close these guys actually are and how close they are in my head? But like, you think there's so many moments where those guys just seem like they are their own little band of brothers, and they would especially they would do anything for each other, right?
Do you know why it worked? Why it worked in the movies?
Blue eyes and scraggly hair?
No, it's because I never knew this until like last week. When they filmed, Chewie spoke English.
Oh, I believe it.
And they put in the rah-rah-rahs later. And it's like, yeah, obviously, I guess that's how it worked. But on set, Chewie's like, hey, are you going to come up here and help me with this dang thing? And then his wise ass reactions were to actual lines. And I'm like, that made all the sense in the world. But hear this the whole time. And I don't know why. Obviously, that's what they did. But in my head,
I guess I never thought about it. But now that you're saying it, it totally makes Harrison Ford's repertoire back and forth
work.
Yeah, it does.
And that's why. And it's one of the funniest things is like you have an entire movie where he doesn't speak any words that you understand, but he understands, and they have a full dialogue. And it's obvious a level of ribbing where he's like, really, did you mess this up, Han? Really, you mess it up all the time. He's like, I'm working on it. And like the way they give each other shit, and the way like Chewie just always has the right thing to say to either settle Han down or set him off is always just was so funny to me. And then to realize it was like, well, yeah, he just was giving him shit on set, and that's how it was in English. And to hear that recording was like kind of like ripping off like the magic. I was like, oh, well, obviously I've been on films. Of course that's how they did it. But I don't know. Like, it's just the fact that
I've been on films.
Why didn't he do that on set?
Oh, see, I thought Peter Mayhew, who was in the suit, I thought he was just speaking, and it's not Wookieese, which I literally learned this week. It's called something else. I just read it in a comic. I don't remember what it's called, but it's not called Wookiee or Wookieese, or it's a different language. But anyway.
So when he opens his mouth to talk, he's speaking.
Yeah, I thought Peter Mayhew would be like, he would do his version of Chewbacca.
That's what I thought too. But
that doesn't make any sense. I don't know if I actually consciously thought that, but I guess I also never consciously thought that it would have been English, but that makes so much sense, Right?
Exactly. So wild. Anyway,
I think there's just so many moments in those movies where you feel like they have been there forever, and they are blood brothers through and through. Especially Empire, I feel like, has so many moments of that. And even the in the sequels, when Han says we're home, I fucking felt that. You know what I mean? And it's that's his family. but Chewbacca is his number one fan, even more than Leia almost. But I count that as a team, as a two-man team, two-man wolf pack.
Fuck yeah, just like the Rocketeers, man. Well, Remy, we got it. This ran long, but I'm happy. I'm happy that we talked teams. We're a good team.
This team episode ran into overtime. I know about sports.
I do a sports
foul shot
now and then. Touchdown goal.
Out of bounds.
Well, before we go into overtime, anyway, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Launchpad Pod, on our website, launchpadpod.com. Watch us on YouTube. Tell us what teams you like. What are your favorite team-based movies?
I would love to hear any that we didn't hit that you guys are like, how did you not talk about X? Like, I really would love to see what we missed, because I'm sure there's a bunch that we didn't even think of.
I'm thinking of a lot of team movies that tried to show you a team, and you're like, I'm not buying that for 1 second.
See, all of this was riffing. I thought you said teen movies, and I wrote down all like 16 Candles, not another teen movie, which I guess shouldn't be on the list, but
hey, that movie was hysterical when it first came out. I thought it was funny. We worked on it, didn't we? Did we work on that?
We worked on. I know I worked on Epic Movie.
Yeah, well, I did. We did snakes and stuff. Yeah, the one with the snakes and
that was
snakes
Epic Movie. Stuff.
Okay, yeah, I worked on Epic Movie with you.
I honestly had to see not another teen movie to see if I worked on it, because I'd be like, oh, that's something that I did. That's
so funny. What about the Dream Warriors? No, we're not talking about teams anymore. We're doing our sign off.
I was thinking that too, because I was looking at your poster. I thought that too.
Yeah. Let us know. Like we said, social media, launchpadpod.com. Remy, let's blast this thing off.
Whoosh. Executed perfectly like teammates.
Like we've been doing this forever.
We didn't think of the Rocketeers from the Ice Cream Man. Oh. There's no such stronger inspirational team, at least for us.
At least for us, and they're high fives.
That's like on the back of our trading card, right? Did you know the Rocketeers call themselves the Rocketeers? Did you know the Rocketeers call themselves that, and they named their show the Launchpad Podcast because of a stupid Clint Howard vehicle that nobody knows because it doesn't even follow through on its own premise and has some farting handshake kids in it? Did you know the Rocketeers didn't even come up with their own juvenile handshake?
I think we did, because I went back to find that in the movie, and it's not the same handshake. We invented it past.
No. We made our own handshake, but we kind of stole the fart noise at least. Didn't they fart as they go up?
I don't remember that part, but yes.
The worst part is I literally watched it this month. I just half watched it. It's that forgettable.
It's a very forgettable movie. I was at a important business dinner this week. And somebody there was like, I mentioned, well, I can't tomorrow because I got a podcast. I'm like, you have a podcast? Tell me what it is. I was like, you don't have to listen to it. No.
Yeah, there's times that happens to me too, where I'm like, not embarrassed, but you're like,
it's a guy in his 60s. And like the rest of the night, he was like, oh, you call yourselves the Handsome Boys. And I was like, that's one of our aliases. And he's like, and the Rocketeers. You guys have a lot of nicknames. I was like, you've been in it a long time. You get some fun nicknames for each other. He's like, uh-huh.
And what kind of pizza do you folks enjoy there?
So this guy in his 60s is about to listen to our podcast, and I told him, I was like, it's pretty sophomoric, but we have fun.
You could point him towards like a decent episode.
I said, listen to some Dolph Lundgren, you'll be happy.
Yeah. Stick to the interviews. The more high profile the interview,
the classier we get,
the less dumb we sound, theoretically.
Well, guys, this has been a blast. Until next time, we're the Rocketeers, and we're out.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.